So, imagine paying for a stranger's coffee in the drive-thru.
Right, like a classic random act of kindness.
Exactly. You pull away feeling like, a pretty decent person. But what if that simple, unprompted act of generosity actually just condemned that stranger to reincarnate as a cow in their next life?
I mean, it is a completely jarring scenario. We are so conditioned to view unprompted generosity as a sign of, like, high moral character.
Yeah, totally.
But the framework we are exploring today completely upends that assumption. It turns our standard view of altruism into something potentially dangerous.
Yeah, today we are doing a deep dive into an essay called The Affection Debt. It was written in January of 2022 by an author named Xu Feng, and it maps out this absolute unforgiving spiritual economy.
It really is unforgiving.
Right, it's a system where every single action, every borrowed item, and even your unspoken feelings create a literal ledger of invisible debts that just, well, they govern your cosmic fate.
And just to frame this for you as we begin, we aren't exploring this as a theological truth we are endorsing or taking sides on.
Oh, definitely not.
We are just stepping inside this philosophy as a thought experiment. Shui Feng is the founder of a philosophical and spiritual community called Lifechanyuan. And the ideas presented in this essay, they blend concepts of reincarnation, spiritual energy, and absolute accountability.
Yeah, and even if you view this purely as a philosophical concept, it forces a complete reevaluation of how you interact with the people around you. It's wild.
It really is.
So let's start by establishing the basic accounting system before we get into the heavy emotional stakes. Because the foundation of this system rests on 5 specific types of debts. The first 2 deal with the mundane, everyday physical transactions. You have the property debt and the money debt.
Right, and the mechanics here operate with the strictness of a bank ledger. A property debt is incurred when you take, borrow, or consume someone else's physical property without replacing it or compensating them.
Like borrowing a pen and just keeping it.
Exactly. Or if you eat a roommate's yogurt and figure they simply won't notice, that goes on the permanent record. And money debt is, well, precisely what it sounds like, unpaid financial loans.
I just find myself wondering how a universe actually audits a missing cup of yogurt. I mean, in this worldview, is there a literal energetic string connecting me to that roommate until the yogurt is returned?
Essentially, yes. Think of it as a law of physics rather than a judge with a clipboard. Every transaction leaves an energetic residue.
Okay, energetic residue.
Yeah, if the transaction is incomplete, meaning the energy only flowed one way, the universe registers an imbalance, you carry that imbalance with you. It is an incredibly strict spiritual credit score.
Wow.
But the stakes escalate significantly when we move from human property to the macro level, which brings us to the third category, the nature debt.
Right, the nature debt. This one really stood out because it implies a literal mathematical equation for our environmental impact. The essay states that anyone who harms nature or others incurs this debt unless they make sufficient efforts and contributions to offset that harm.
And it is entirely action-oriented. It's not about feeling guilty or, posting a public apology online.
Right, a tweet won't save you here.
Exactly. The mechanics of the nature debt require equal or greater energetic restoration. So if an industrial plant pollutes a local river, the executives cannot simply pay a fine to a government entity and clear their spiritual ledger.
They can't just buy carbon credits or something.
No, they would have to physically or energetically restore that river or contribute an equivalent amount of life-giving energy back into the environment. That is the only way to balance the cosmic equation.
So it is a strict one-to-one energetic exchange. If I destroy a tree, I don't just owe an apology. I owe the universe the exact vital force that tree would have provided over its lifetime.
Precisely. You have extracted energy from the system, and the system demands repayment. Which brings us to the fourth and most severe physical debt, the life debt.
Oh boy.
Yeah, the essay takes the old axiom, a life for a life, and strips away all metaphor. If you kill any life, you must pay with your own life.
And that phrasing, any life, is staggering. It doesn't just mean murder in the legal sense. It implies that stepping on a spider or swatting a mosquito registers on this exact same ledger.
The underlying logic is that life itself is the highest currency in this economy.
Yeah.
You cannot borrow it, and you cannot casually extinguish it without assuming the full weight of its cosmic value.
That is intense.
Very. If you haven't paid for taking that life, you carry a life debt. And the penalty for carrying any of these 4 physical debts, property, money, nature, or life, is absolute.
The doors to heaven are locked.
Completely locked. The essay states clearly that there is absolutely no hope of going to heaven as long as a debt remains.
Wow.
The cosmic machinery forces you back into the cycle of reincarnation to settle the accounts. There is no ascending until the math is resolved.
Man, if the universe is holding on to the receipts for a borrowed pen or a swatted fly with that kind of intensity, I mean, the implications for how we deal with other humans must be insane. With all our messy emotions, unspoken expectations, and complicated relationships, it must be a complete minefield.
It really is. And that is exactly where we enter the territory of affection debts, or kingzai. This is the real core of Shuifeng's philosophy. The basic premise is that human interaction is fundamentally an exchange of comfort.
Right, receiving physical, psychological, or spiritual comfort from someone else. And if you take that comfort without returning or compensating them, you create an affection debt.
Exactly. A subset of this is the debt of favor. When someone extends effort to help you, they are giving you a piece of their vital energy.
Okay.
If you do not reciprocate, you have taken their energy and kept it, creating a deficit.
I mean, that part feels intuitive. It's standard reciprocity, right?
Yeah, on the surface.
But this is where the essay throws a massive wrench into our moral compass.
Yeah.
The community of Lifechanyuan has a specific rule regarding favors. And the rule is, do not offer help if someone does not ask for it.
Right.
Which brings me back to the coffee in the drive-thru.
Yeah.
Why is an unsolicited act of kindness condemned as cruel in this framework?
Well, we have to look at the energetic mechanics of consent. In our modern culture, we view an unprompted favor as a gift.
Right, a nice surprise.
But in the spiritual economy, a favor is a loan. If you force a loan onto someone who didn't apply for it, you are burdening them with a debt they didn't agree to carry.
So by paying for their coffee, I have basically opened a line of credit in their name without their permission.
Exactly. And because of the strict accounting system we just established, that unasked-for loan has devastating consequences.
This is the crazy part.
It is. If that person dies without paying you back for that coffee, which they cannot do because they don't even know who you are, they die with an unbalanced ledger.
And the essay is brutally specific about the outcome here. It states that to pay you back in the next life, they might be forced to reincarnate as a pig, a dog, a cow, or a sheep, just to serve you and work off the debt.
Think about the mechanics of that punishment. The universe requires the debt to be paid.
So they become livestock.
Yes. Since they owe you labor or sustenance, and they couldn't provide it in their human life because you forced a blind debt onto them, the cosmic machinery reassigns them a form where they can provide that sustenance.
That completely recontextualizes the idea of charity. I mean, it suggests that our impulse to swoop in and save the day for a friend who didn't ask for help isn't actually selfless at all. It's a form of spiritual interference.
It demands a radical respect for the autonomy of another person's spiritual journey. When you intervene unasked, you are prioritizing your own desire to feel helpful over their energetic freedom.
Wow.
You are tying a rock to their ankle just so you can feel good about tossing them a rope.
That is a deeply uncomfortable mirror to look into. I mean, think about your own life for a moment. How many times do we step in to fix a family member's problem, thinking we are the hero of the story, when in reality we are just tethering them to us?
It forces a really hard question. Is our altruism actually just a hidden mechanism for control? When we need to feel needed, we generate these unbalanced equations everywhere we go.
Geez. So if offering unsolicited advice or paying for a coffee creates a tether that transcends lifetimes, what happens when the emotion isn't just a fleeting favor, but like intense, all-consuming romantic love?
That introduces the second subcategory of affection debts. They call it love debts, or kingaizai.
Oh.
The essay acknowledges a baseline truth. Humans naturally require physical, physiological, and spiritual comfort. A romantic relationship is essentially a closed, energetic ecosystem where two people are meant to provide that comfort to each other in equal measure.
But the flow becomes one-directional? Like if one person is constantly absorbing emotional support, physical affection, or spiritual validation, without giving the same level back, a deficit forms.
Right. And here's where the mechanics get incredibly subtle. The debt isn't just behavioral. It's not limited to who bought dinner or who compromised on vacation plans.
Which is how we usually measure it.
Exactly. The essay introduces a concept translated as a predestined relationship, or kingwen. It argues that the internal feeling of attachment itself is a tangible, measurable debt.
Wait, the feeling itself?
Yes.
So if you simply cannot forget someone because of deep affection, or if you feel in your gut that you owe them something, that psychological state isn't just a memory. It's a literal spiritual anchor.
Think about how radical that is. The lingering attachment is the debt. The feeling of longing is the energetic tether actively pulling you back toward that person.
I keep visualizing this like an emotional open tab at a bar.
That's a great analogy.
You hand over your credit card, and the tab just sits there, open all night. In modern psychology, we treat moving on from a breakup as an exercise in self-care. You process the grief, you heal, you move forward.
Right.
But in this framework, getting over someone is a literal necessity to close the spiritual tab. If you walk out of the bar while the tab is still open,
Right.
meaning you still harbor that deep, unforgettable affection, you are energetically chained to the establishment.
The open tab prevents you from leaving the building. And in this context, the building is the cycle of earthly reincarnation. You cannot ascend. You cannot, as the essay phrases it, go to heaven freely and unrestrainedly if your energy is still heavily invested in a past connection.
Which completely flies in the face of how society romanticizes longing. We love the narrative of the tragic, unforgettable romance. You look at a cultural touchstone like the movie The Notebook.
Oh, definitely.
The protagonist spends a year writing letters, builds a whole house for a woman who isn't there, and holds on to that affection for decades. Culturally, we view that as the absolute pinnacle of beautiful devotion.
We view it as noble because we prioritize the intensity of human feeling. But this philosophy strips the romance entirely away from that longing. It frames those exact feelings as spiritual traps.
So Ryan Gosling's character is basically just spiritually trapping himself and her.
Exactly. The devotion isn't beautiful, it is a massive energetic liability. By refusing to forget, you are keeping the tether alive and guaranteeing that both you and the other person will be pulled back down into the physical world to resolve it.
Because your soul is weighed down by the gravity of that unclosed tab, which honestly leaves me in a bit of a panic as we look at the big picture.
How so?
Well, if we tally this up, I have definitely eaten food I didn't replace, I have a habit of offering unasked advice, and I harbor memories of past relationships that still carry emotional weight. My spiritual ledger is an absolute disaster. How does one actually clear this balance sheet?
The good news is the essay doesn't just present the trap, it provides the mechanism for escape. Self-cultivation in this worldview is entirely oriented around striving to repay these 5 debts.
Okay, yeah.
And it introduces a very specific method to balance the ledger, particularly for heavy energetic deficits like the life debt. It is called formless almsgiving.
Formless almsgiving. I need to process the logic of that.
Right.
If the ultimate way to clear my debt is giving to others, how do I do that without violating the rule we just talked about?
It is a tricky paradox.
Right. If helping someone unasked forces them into a spiritual debt and makes them a cow, how can giving possibly be the solution?
To understand how this paradox resolves, we have to look at the timing of when this essay was written. Xie Feng published this on Lunar New Year's Eve in 2022.
Ah, okay. A time traditionally focused on settling accounts and clearing out old baggage before the new year starts.
Exactly. He uses that cultural moment to advise entering the new year with a clear mind, to give more and take less, with the explicit goal of ending all kinds of worldly ties.
So the goal is zero ties.
Right. So the question becomes, how do you give energy away without creating a new tie? The answer is in the word formless. It means giving in a way that demands absolutely zero reciprocation and attaches zero identity to the transaction.
Wait, so it's like paying off a massive financial debt, but doing it through a shell corporation that immediately dissolves the second the transfer clears.
That's brilliant. Yes.
The debt is zeroed out, but the universe has literally no entity to send a thank you card to. The ledger is clean, and there is no return address to anchor a new tether to.
That is a perfect mechanical explanation. Formless giving removes the sender identity entirely. Think of it like an electrical circuit. A typical debt requires a sender and a receiver to complete the loop.
Makes sense.
But if you give formlessly, meaning anonymously, without expectation of gratitude, and without even holding on to the memory of your own good deed, you break the circuit.
Wow.
The spiritual energy satisfies the cosmic deficit and then just dissipates harmlessly into the universe.
So the transaction happens, but no ego is involved to catch the return volley.
Yes.
So if I pay for the coffee in the drive-thru, and I secretly hope the driver sees my car and waves, or even just pat myself on the back for being a good person that has form, that creates a tie.
Because your ego is demanding an energetic return on investment, even if it is just an internal feeling of self-satisfaction.
But if I give in a way where my identity is entirely erased and my emotional expectation is absolute zero, I clear my own ledger without writing a new line on someone else's page.
It requires a profound level of psychological detachment. You are paying into the cosmic bank without putting your name on the deposit slip. It is the only way to repay your debts without ensnaring someone else in the process.
It is a staggering way to view human interaction. I mean, we started this deep dive with the mundane mechanics of returning a borrowed pen and escalated into this intricate, energetic web where our most celebrated virtues are actually traps.
Right. Things like unsolicited kindness and undying romantic devotion are the very things keeping us trapped. It is a rigorous framework that invites a really deep self-audit.
It really does.
Think about the people in your life right now. Who have you taken comfort from without reciprocating? Who have you tried to save without their permission? And who are you refusing to let go of because you find comfort in the longing?
It forces you to evaluate the gravity of your own connections. Which brings me back to the concept of the emotional open tab. If every feeling of deep affection, every pang of unrequited love, and every lingering attachment acts as a literal spiritual debt that blocks your path, is the ultimate goal of enlightenment to become completely detached from love altogether?
That's the big question.
Or is there a way to love someone deeply, to share comfort and care without ever opening that eternal tab in the first place? Think about that next time you feel you owe someone. Until next time, keep diving deep.